Okay, so now we are going to see the charged particle moving at some angle theta to the magnetic field. That means if supposing we have a magnetic field, let's say the magnetic field is in this direction like this, okay, and a charged particle enters the magnetic field. So velocity vector makes an angle of theta with the magnetic field. Then what is going to happen? What kind of trajectory this particle is going to follow, okay, when it enters at an angle of theta with the magnetic field, okay, that we are going to see. Okay, so now here let us consider a charged particle, okay, having a mass of m. Let's say we have charged particle q having a mass of m, okay, and it is entering a uniform magnetic field region. Let's say that uniform magnetic field region is b with a velocity of v. Okay, so we are defining all these terms. So we have a charged particle q which is entering the magnetic field, okay, the magnetic field b with a velocity of v, and the mass of the charged particle is m. Okay, so let's draw this in a coordinate system. We'll draw x, y and z axes and then mark the things. So let's say this is my coordinate system, something like this. Okay, so this is my, let's say, y axis, this is x axis, and this is z axis. Okay, so let's say that magnetic field is along the x axis. So let me draw it over here. So magnetic field is going like this, okay, or rather let me draw it a little bit so that we can exactly draw the trajectory. Okay, so I'll just draw it a bit cross so that we can draw the trajectory. So let's say the magnetic field is along the x-axis, something like this. This is my x-axis and this is my magnetic field. Okay, let's say that the velocity vector is entering the magnetic field at an angle. So it is going at an angle like this, let's say. So this is my velocity vector v, which makes an angle of theta with the magnetic field. So this is how my charged particle is entering. So this velocity v can be resolved into two vectors. Since it is coming at an angle in the y-x plane or xy plane, we can definitely resolve it. So let me resolve it into two vectors. So this y is going to become one vector, y-axis is going to be one component, okay, and x-axis is going to give us another component. Okay, so let me write down the component. So this component is going to become v sine of theta, and this component is going to become v cos of theta. Since this is nearer to the angle theta, this one is going to become cos theta and this one is going to become sine of theta. So let's name this one as v perpendicular, since this is the perpendicular component to the magnetic field. This is becoming perpendicular to the magnetic field, right? So this we will call as the perpendicular vector, and this we will call as the parallel vector, since it is parallel to the magnetic field. Okay, so now since this is parallel to the magnetic field, we have taken it as parallel vector, that is v cos of theta, and this one is perpendicular to the magnetic field, we have taken it as v perpendicular, which is equal to v sine of theta. So now v perpendicular, that is the perpendicular component of the velocity will be responsible for the circular motion, correct? No, since this component is at a 90 degrees, see, this is magnetic field b, and this component is 90 degrees, v sine of theta, that is the perpendicular component, is at 90 degrees. So we already know that whenever charge enters the magnetic field at 90 degrees, that velocity will be following a circular trajectory. That means it will keep on taking a circular path. It will go on rotating like this. Correct? So here also this perpendicular component of the velocity will be responsible for the circular path of the charged particle. But here you will see that there is another component, that is the parallel component v cos of theta, which will in turn try to push this charge along the x-axis. So the perpendicular component is responsible or will try to take this charge along the circular path. It will try to take it along the circular trajectory, whereas this parallel component of velocity will try to push it. Okay, it will try to push it along the x-axis. Correct? So at the end, as a combination of these two components, how is my trajectory going to look like? So basically my trajectory is going to be a helical path. That means it will take rotations. It will take rotations like this. Along with the rotations, it will also move ahead. It will go in a forward direction. So it is going to be something like this. So it is going to follow a helical path. So what can we say about a charged particle which enters the magnetic field at an angle? A charged particle which enters the magnetic field at an angle theta is going to follow a helical trajectory. Okay, it is going to follow a helical trajectory. Let me draw the arrows to show the direction of motion. So it's something like this. Okay, this is how it is going to travel. So I'll just end up the arrow like this. Okay, so it is going to follow helical trajectory. Okay, so let us write down the few expression, like expression for the radius of the path or expression for the pitch. We are going to see what is the pitch. Okay, so now first coming to the radius, so same thing to follow as we followed in the first case. So here obviously it is taking a circular path also, and V is perpendicular to the magnetic field over here, which is responsible for the circular path. So here also a centripetal force is acting, that is why it is taking a circular path. So this centripetal force is nothing but a magnetic force here. Correct, no? So we can say that the centripetal force will be equal to the magnetic force. And what is going to be the centripetal force? mv square upon r, where m is the mass of the charged particle, v is the velocity with which it is taking a circular path, and r is the radius of the circular path. But which v is responsible for the circular path? The perpendicular component of the velocity is responsible for the circular path. That is why I am going to put a suffix perpendicular here. So v over here is going to be the perpendicular velocity, the perpendicular component of the velocity, since it is responsible for that circular path, which is responsible, which is possible due to the centripetal force. Okay, that is why we are putting v perpendicular here. So this centripetal force is equal to the Lorentz magnetic force, which is given by Q into V into B. So again, what is the magnetic force in which path it is applied? It is applied in the circular path only. It is pulling the charge towards the center. So again, this component is also going to be the perpendicular component. Okay, so what is going to happen over here? One V perpendicular and another V perpendicular on this side is going to get cancelled. So what is going to be your formula for radius of the circular path? The radius of the circular path will be m into V perpendicular divided by Q into B. This is going to be the expression for the radius of the circular path. So what is going to be V perpendicular? You can also write it as, this can be written as m. V perpendicular is nothing but V sine of theta divided by Q into B. So this can be your final expression. Okay, this let us put it in the single bracket. So this can be your final expression for the radius of the circular trajectory. Okay. Now coming to the time period, the next expression, the time period. So this was the radius. So now time period we know is given by, will be given by the time required for one complete revolution. So if we use the formula for speed is equal to distance upon time, if we use this formula, then time will be equal to distance upon speed. So let's use this. So distance upon speed is going to be your time. So time interval, that is the time required for one complete revolution, one complete rotation will be total distance covered in one complete rotation. So what is going to be the total distance covered? It will be nothing but the circumference of the circle. Circumference of this circle having the radius of r. So let it be 2 pi r, that is the distance covered, divided by the speed. The speed with which it is going in a circular path is v perpendicular. Correct? So this is what I am substituting over here. So let's substitute the values. So this is going to be, I'll remove this part. Okay, so let us substitute the things. So this is going to be 2 pi r, and v perpendicular is v sine of theta. Let us again substitute for r. So 2 pi upon v sine of theta, and in place of r let me put mv sine of theta upon qb. So if you look here, v and v is going to get cancelled. Sine theta is also cancelling. So what will be t from here? The time period t is going to be 2 pi m upon q multiplied by b. This is what is going to be your time period. Okay. Moving on. Frequency. Obviously frequency is going to be reciprocal of time period. So that is going to be qb upon 2 pi m. So if you notice over here, both the quantities, that is time period as well as the frequency, are independent of the velocity of the particle. They are not dependent upon the velocity of particle. So that means that if q by m ratio is same, if q upon m for two particles is same, and the two particles are going with different velocities, still their time period and their frequency is going to be equal. Okay, so supposing I have two charged particles whose q by m ratio is same, but they are moving with velocity v1 and v2, then their time period is going to be same and their frequency is also going to be same. So what is going to compensate for this same time period and same frequency is what is radius. The radius is going to compensate. So radius over here will be different, radius over here will be different of the circular path. Okay. Next is one more term that we are going to introduce over here called pitch. Okay. So pitch of a helix. So we know that this charged particle is following a helical path, right? So there is something called as pitch of a helix. Okay. So now what is this pitch? So the linear distance travelled by the charged particle in one rotation is called as the pitch. That means basically the distance between the two crests you can consider, or the distance between the two troughs you can consider. That is basically this distance you can consider between these two troughs, or the distance between the two crests you can consider. Okay, so basically what is a pitch? A linear distance, a straight distance travelled by a charged particle in one rotation. How much distance it is travelling? It starts the rotation over here and then it comes back to this point. Correct, no? So how much distance it has travelled from here to here, from this point to this point, okay, is going to be your pitch. Okay, so let us find out the expression for the pitch. So here also let us apply the same formula, that is speed is equal to distance upon time. So if you apply the same formula, speed is equal to distance upon time. Apply the same formula. The speed with which it is going forward, the speed with which the charged particle is going forward in the direction of x, that is the direction of magnetic field, is v parallel. So let's put v parallel over here, because in this direction it is going with the speed v parallel, okay, which will be equal to, the distance is nothing but the pitch that we have considered, distance is nothing but a pitch divided by time it takes. Okay, time is going to be same as the time period, because time required for one complete revolution is nothing but the time period which we have already got. Okay, so pitch will be what from here? Pitch will be v parallel multiplied by the time. So same thing I'm going to write over here. Pitch is going to be v parallel multiplied by the time interval. So now we know v parallel is equal to v cos of theta, and time period we have just now got as qb upon 2 pi m. So let's substitute this v parallel as v cos of theta, and let's substitute this t as qb upon 2 pi m. sorry, 2 pi m upon qb, right? That is for the frequency. So it's going to be 2 pi m upon qb. This is what I get. So what is going to be the expression for pitch? So pitch is going to be equal to 2 pi m v cos of theta divided by q into b. This is going to be the expression for the pitch. I'll repeat again. Pitch is the linear distance traveled by the charged particle in one rotation. Okay, so that is basically the pitch of the helix, which is denoted by capital P. Okay, pitch is denoted by a capital P. So this is what we have, like the expression for radius, expression for time period, frequency, and the pitch of the helix. And we see here that when a charged particle enters the magnetic field at an angle, okay, it makes an angle theta with the magnetic field, then in that case what is going to happen? The charged particle is going to follow a helical trajectory. Okay, and third one is a simple case. What is the third case? When initial velocity is parallel to magnetic field, or it is anti-parallel to magnetic field. So in that case what is going to happen? In that case theta is equal to either 0 degrees or 180 degrees. So there will be no force acting, right? Force acting is equal to qvb sine of theta. That means supposing your magnetic field is going like this, okay, and the charged particle enters like this with velocity v, or it enters like this opposite to the magnetic field. So in that case the angle will be 0 degrees or 180 degrees. So force is going to be equal to 0. Okay, so thus the charged particle will continue to move along the line of force. It will go on like that without any deflection. Okay, so it will continue to move in the same direction, undeflected. Okay, so next topic we have is motion of a charged particle in a combined electric and magnetic field. So at a place, supposing there is magnetic field as well as electric field put together, and you put a moving charge over there. So what is going to happen to that moving charge? Okay, so that we are going to see. Okay, let us continue. So motion of a charged particle in combined electric and magnetic field. This is also called as velocity selector and velocity filter. So now if I have a moving charge, and that moving charge is placed inside a combined electric and a magnetic field, what is going to happen to that moving charge? So let us draw the configuration first. Let us draw the setup first. So again I am going to consider a coordinate system. Let me draw x, y and z axes to understand this better. So this is my y, this is x, and this is my z axis. Let's mark the axes. So this is x, y and z. Okay, so I have a charge over here. Let's consider a positive charge. So let us consider a positive q charge. Okay, and it is moving in the direction, let's say plus x axis direction it is going. So it is going with the velocity vector along positive x-axis. So v is going along positive x-axis. Okay, so we can also say that v is equal to v into I cap. That means the direction of the velocity is I cap, unit vector that represents the x-axis. Okay, and the magnitude is v. Let us say in this region a perpendicular electric and magnetic fields are applied. So now there is a special name for this. This is called as the crossed fields. Okay, so supposing in a region you apply perpendicularly the magnetic field and electric field together, but they should be perpendicular. Okay, so that is called as the crossed field. Okay, so let us apply those fields now. So let's say I apply a electric field, a uniform electric field in this direction. Let me take some other color. So this is, let's say, okay, rather let me draw it at the side. Okay, here I'll draw it so that it is understood. So this is electric field over here, and since it is a cross field, your magnetic field should be perpendicular. So since I've taken the velocity direction along x-axis and electric field along y-axis, I'll take the magnetic field along z-axis. Okay, so this is my electric field vector and this is my magnetic field vector. Okay, so since electric field and magnetic field, crossed fields, are applied over here, I can write that electric field is E times J cap and magnetic field is B times K cap. Okay, so now since these cross fields are applied over here and the charge is moving along the third axis, that is the x-axis. Okay, so it's quite obvious that due to the electric field there will be electrostatic force acting on the charge, and due to the magnetic field there will be Lorentz force acting on the charge. Both the forces will be acting together. Okay, so since it is a positive charge and it is placed in the electric field, correct? So supposing this is the electric field and a positive charge is placed in the electric field, we know that a force acts on the charge which is in the direction of electric field. For a positive charge, the force acting will be in the direction of electric field. So force acting over here on this charge will be something like this. So it is going to be something like this. This is going to be my force acting on the charge Q, and this force is going to be what kind of force? The electrostatic force. And since it is also placed in the magnetic field, there will be Lorentz force acting. So use your right hand, curl your fingers from the first vector to the second vector. The force is given by Q times V cross B. So curl your fingers from V to B. You will notice that your thumb is going to point downwards. Okay, you can take your right hand, curl your fingers from V to B. Okay, it is going to be clockwise direction. So you will notice that the thumb is pointing down. So your magnetic force or the magnetic Lorentz force is going to act downwards. Okay, so it is going to act something like this. So this is going to be your magnetic Lorentz force. So FB, let's say. Okay, so this is your electrostatic force in the direction of electric field, and there will be magnetic Lorentz force which is going to act perpendicular to the plane containing V and B, okay, which is downwards in this case. Okay, so now what exactly is a velocity selector? Okay, so basically velocity selector is an arrangement of cross fields. As you see over here, it is an arrangement of cross fields. You have magnetic field and electric field put perpendicular to each other, okay, in particular region, which is going to help us to select a beam of charged particles of a given velocity. So that is velocity selector. You can select a beam of particles of the velocity you want. You can select the velocity you want over here, irrespective of their charge and mass. Whatever may be their charge and mass. Supposing you have a beam of charged particles, there are different charged particles moving of different charge and mass ratio. Okay, and the velocities with which they are moving are completely random. One is moving with 5, one is moving with 10, one is moving with 15, one is moving with 3. Okay, but you want specifically 5 meters of seconds coming out undeflected. Others you want them to deflect. okay, and you want only 5 meters per second velocity charge particles to come out undeflected. So you can you can do this using the concept of this velocity selector. How it is possible? Okay, so look at this. So supposing I have such cross field, okay, there is electric field, there is magnetic field over here, and you put a charge particle. We see that a electrostatic force is acting in the direction of electric field and a magnetic force is acting downwards, exactly opposite to the electrostatic field. So do you see over here that electrostatic force and the magnetic force are exactly opposite to each other? They are exactly opposite to each other. What if we set their magnitude equal to each other? If I make the magnitude of electrostatic force equal to the magnitude of magnetic force, what is going to happen? A simple thing that is going to happen over here is this force is going to cancel out this force. The electrostatic force and magnetic force will become equal and opposite in direction, and they will cancel out each other. So since there is no force acting on this charged particle over here, what is going to happen? That charged particle will not experience any force and it will straight away move out like this, because there is no force acting there. So if you select your magnetic field and electric field such that the electrostatic force and the magnetic force becomes equal and opposite and they cancel out each other, what is going to happen? The charged particle is straight away going to move out undeflected. Correct? But how to set this now? Supposing you want a beam of 5 meter per second velocity charge particle to come out. How do you set your magnetic field and electric field? Okay, so let us find that out. Okay, so if you see over here, my intention is to make the electrostatic force and the magnetic force equal to each other. So let's equate them. Okay, so I want my electrostatic force to be equal to the magnetic Lorentz force. Correct? So what is electrostatic force? It is going to be Q multiplied by E. The charge multiplied by the electric field is electrostatic force, will be equal to the magnetic force. What is magnetic force? Magnetic force is Q V B sine of theta. Theta in this case is 90 degrees. Theta in this case is 90 degrees. So sine of theta will become 1. So QE will be equal to QVB. So you will see that Q and Q gets cancelled. E is equal to VB. Correct? So what is going to be V from here? V from here is going to be E upon B. Okay? So the simple thing what you are going to do over here is just set your E by B ratio such that it equals to the velocity of the charged particle you want to come out of the beam. Supposing you want to take out 5 meters per second charged particle out of the beam. Undeflected, you want them out. So what you have to do? You have to set the ratio of E upon B equal to 5 meters per second. So what will happen in that case? In that case, your electrostatic force will become equal to the magnetic force. They will cancel out each other, and that 5 meter per second velocity charged particle will straight away come outside. The others, which are 10 meters per second, maybe 20 meters per second, will start deflecting. They will start deflecting because for them, one of them will be higher. Either electrostatic force will be higher or magnetic force will be higher. So depending upon which one is higher, they will start deflecting. Okay, and only 5 meter per second wala charge particle will not experience any force and it will straight away come out from the beam. So that is why it is called as the velocity selector or velocity filter, because you are filtering out the velocities there. You are selecting a velocity, a specific velocity over there. Okay, so that is why it is called as the velocity selector. Okay, so this is the derivation for magnetic force on a current carrying conductor in uniform magnetic field. So we are going to have a conductor which is carrying some current and it is placed in a uniform magnetic field, and we are going to find out the magnetic force acting on this current carrying conductor. Now the magnetic force acting on a charged particle which is placed in a uniform magnetic field is known to us. F is equal to QVB sine of theta, or in vector form F is equal to Q V cross B is the force acting on a charged particle. Now what we have? We have the entire conductor. Okay, this conductor no doubt is going to have charged particle inside it, but now we have to find out the force acting on the entire charged conductor which is placed in the uniform magnetic field. So now here I am going to consider a conductor. Let's say the conductor is PQ, okay, and this conductor PQ is placed in a uniform magnetic field. So let me draw a conductor. I'll draw a cylindrical conductor. So this is a conductor. Let's say the name of the conductor is PQ. Let's say the length of the conductor, let us take as L, okay, and the area of cross section of the conductor, let us take as A. Okay, A is the area of cross section and L is the length of the conductor PQ. So since we have said that the conductor is carrying a current, so let us mark the current direction. So let's say the current is flowing from P to Q. Okay, so let us say that the current is flowing from P to Q in this direction. So current I is flowing in this direction. So if I consider this as a current element, what is the current element? A small piece of conductor which is having a current, right? So that is nothing but a current element. So this conductor PQ can also be considered as a current element. So if I consider a current element, I know that current element is a vector quantity. So the direction of that vector quantity is given in the direction of current. So this current element is going to be in the direction of current. Okay, so this is what you can also consider. Now supposing I have an electron. Okay, I have an electron inside this conductor. So let me mark an electron inside a conductor, a negative charge. So since the current is flowing this side, it's quite obvious that the electron is going to travel the opposite side. Since the current is going from P to Q, the electron is going to travel from Q to P, because we know that current direction is taken opposite to the flow of electron. So this is going to be the direction of the electron from Q to P, correct? So this is going to be, let's say, Vd, that is the drift velocity of the electron. That is, the electron is going opposite. Okay, the current is flowing from P to Q, the electron is drifting from Q to P. Okay, so now since this charge is placed in a magnetic field, let us draw a magnetic field. For this reason, let us again consider a Cartesian plane. So let's say that the current is going in y direction. Let's say current is flowing in y direction. Let's take magnetic field along z direction. So let me draw the magnetic field something like this. On top I'll draw. Let's say that the magnetic field is over here. Like this. In the z direction, let's take it. Okay, and let us mark the x direction also, the third coordinate also. Let's mark it here. Okay, so the electrons are going to drift towards the left with a velocity of Vd, we'll consider. So each electron over here experiences a magnetic Lorentz force, correct? See, the electron is going like this, the magnetic field is going on top. So magnetic field and the velocity of the electron is perpendicular to each other. So this electron is going to experience a Lorentz force with which it is going to travel, correct? So this Lorentz force will be acting in which direction? It is going to act in the x direction. Take your right hand, curl your fingers from first vector to second vector, that is from Vd to B. Okay, you will notice that your electron is going to experience a force in the x direction. Okay, so how much will be this force? this magnetic Lorentz force acting on a charge, we know that it is given by QVB sine of theta, right? So let us write that force. So force will be equal to QVB sine of theta, where theta is the angle between V and B. Okay, now not all the electrons are going to travel in the direction perpendicular to B. Not every electron, because electron motion is random in a conductor. So every electron is not going to travel perpendicular to the B. So let us consider that theta is the angle between VD and B. Okay. So now since our charge is the electron, let me substitute it as minus E. Okay. And this is going to be VB sine theta. V is the velocity of electron. So I have considered it as the drift velocity. What is drift velocity? We have already learned in the third chapter, current electricity. So velocity is the drift velocity cross the magnetic field applied, because VB sine theta is nothing but V cross B. Velocity in this case is nothing but a drift velocity. Okay, and the magnetic field is taken as B. So this is what I get for the magnetic force. So magnetic force is equal to minus E VD cross B. So I am going to introduce another term over here, that is small n. Okay. So if small n is number of free electrons per unit volume in a conductor. If small n is number of free electrons per unit volume, then total number of electrons okay, will be equal to what? Will be equal to the number of electrons per unit volume multiplied by the total volume of the conductor. Correct? And what is going to be the total volume of the conductor? Volume of a conductor is given by the area of cross section divided by the height. So area of cross section is A, and the height of the conductor we have taken is L. So it will become A into L. So this is going to be the total number of electrons inside this conductor. See, I'll repeat again. N is the number of free electrons per unit volume. That means N number of electrons are present in 1 unit of volume. So total number of electrons will be how much? The number of electrons per unit volume multiplied by the total volume. Correct? So total volume will be how much? Volume of a cylinder, or volume of this figure will be given by height times the area of cross section, A into H. So here height is L, so it will become A multiplied by L. So now this was the force acting on one electron. So what will be the total force now? So total force on a conductor will be the total force acting on all the electrons. So total force on a conductor will be equal to the total number of electrons multiplied by the force on one electron. That is why I have taken it as small f. Now total force I will put as capital F. So total magnetic force acting on a conductor will be equal to how much? The total number of electrons present multiplied by the force acting on one electron. Okay, so let us substitute the force acting on one electron and the total number of electrons. So total number of electrons is N into A into L, and the force we have found out is minus E VD cross B. Okay, so this is what we are going to get. So let us put a square bracket over here. So here there is a square bracket. So just make substitution for N and F. Okay, so I'll just make the changes here and there. Since this is a scalar quantity, charge is a scalar quantity, I'll remove it out. So E I'll remove out. N is again a constant, so I'll keep it out. A is constant, I'll keep it out. Okay, so this L I'll take inside with a negative sign. So minus L times VD cross B. This I'll keep inside. This I'm going to keep inside. So now look at this. If IL represents the current element, IDL, okay, represents the current element vector in the direction of current. It is going in the direction of current. Then the vector L and VD will have the opposite directions. If IDL is going like this, then obviously VD is going to have opposite direction to L. So VD and L are going to go in the opposite direction. So if I take L into VD over here, and if I want to shift this vector sign from VD to L, then what I have to do? I'll have to make this positive. That means minus L into VD will be equal to positive VD into L. So what I'm doing over here is I'm just shifting the vector sign. Here this product was L times VD. So I'm making L vector now, and VD I'm making scalar. Scalar in the sense I'm taking the magnitude of VD. So I'm just shifting the, I'm doing with some intention. I'm going to derive a proper expression over here. So remember, while shifting this vector from one vector to the another vector, okay, vector sign, what you'll have to do is this sign you'll have to make it positive, because both are opposite to each other. See, IDL is going this side, that means L is going this side, and VD is opposite. Both are opposite to each other. So since I am shifting the vector sign over here, what I have to do is this minus will become plus over here. Okay, so this concept I am going to use over here. So this is going to be E N into A. Okay, I am going to shift the vector sign. So this is going to be VD into L into cross into B. So this minus sign will vanish. Minus sign will disappear because I have shifted the vector from one vector to another vector. Okay, so now VD I'll take out. So N E VD into A. So what will remain in the bracket is L cross B. Okay, this will remain in the bracket. So now what is NEAVD? What is NEAVD? If you remember the current electricity, NEAVD is nothing but the current. Correct? NEAVD is nothing but the current generated by drifting electrons. When electron drifts, the current generated is I. That will be equal to NEAVD, where N is the number of electrons per unit volume, E is the charge on electron, A is the cross-sectional area of electron, and VD is the drift velocity with which the electrons are moving. So I'll make the substitution over here. So this is going to be F will be equal to I times NEAVD will become I. So I times L cross B. So this expression is going to be the force, the magnetic force on a current carrying conductor in a uniform magnetic field. So this is the vector form of the expression for the magnetic force on a current carrying conductor in a uniform magnetic field. So if you want to write down the magnitude, how will you write down the magnitude? Just open up that cross product. So F will be equal to I. L cross B can be written as LB sine of theta, where theta is the angle between L vector, which is taken in the direction of current, and B vector will be your theta in this case. Okay, where theta is the angle between the direction of B and the direction of flow of current, you can say. Okay, I'll write over here, theta is angle between direction of B and direction of current, that is I vector, L vector. Okay. Okay, now coming to the direction of magnetic force over here, which is acting on this current carrying conductor, what you are going to use over here is right hand screw rule, or you can also use Fleming's left hand rule. Okay, so obviously the force over here is given by I times cross product of L and B. So it is going to lie in a plane in a direction perpendicular to the plane containing L and B. Correct? No, there will be a this will be the force which will be perpendicular to the plane containing L and B. So just curl your fingers from the first vector, that is L, to the B. Okay, so if you look at the figure, L is going this side in the y direction, B is going on top. So curl your fingers from L to B. You will notice that the thumb is pointing in the direction of positive x-axis. Just curl your fingers from here to here of your right hand. You will notice that the thumb is pointing in the direction of positive x-axis. Okay, so this is going to be the direction of force. That means, supposing you place this charged conductor, the conductor, current carrying conductor, in a uniform magnetic field, this conductor is going to move towards you. If the specifications are like this, okay, if the magnetic field is applied like this, the conductor is going to travel, it is going to move towards you, because the force is being applied over there. Okay, so this is the direction of force. So direction of force is given by right hand screw rule or Fleming's left hand rule. Okay, so these rules can be used. Okay, so now let us look at few special cases. We'll refer the figure for this. Okay, few special cases. So case number one, if theta is equal to 0 or 180. Okay, I'll write down the expression over here. F is equal to I L cross D. Okay, that is given by I L B sine of theta also. Okay, now if theta is equal to 0 or 180 degrees, that means your current direction, okay, or the length direction and your magnetic field direction is same. Your current is flowing in the direction or opposite to the direction of magnetic field. So in that case, the force is going to be equal to 0. The magnetic force acting on the current carrying conductor, is not going to move, because the force is going to be equal to 0. Okay. Second, supposing if theta is equal to 90 degrees, that means the current flowing or the position of the conductor, straight conductor, is perpendicular to the magnetic field. In that case, F will be equal to ILB sine of 90 degrees, and sine of 90 is 1, so it will be ILB. This is going to be the maximum force acting on the charged particle. Okay, this is going to be your maximum force acting on the charged particle. Okay, one thing you can note over here is that supposing you have a current carrying conductor, okay, and it is placed in a magnetic field, okay, there will be magnetic force acting on this conductor. Okay, so that magnetic force supposing is IBL or ILB. Okay, this force is acting on this conductor, this particular conductor. So a wire of length L, okay, supposing you have a wire of length L, this wire of length L can be made to float in the magnetic field. Supposing a magnetic field is applied and this wire is placed, a current carrying wire is placed in the magnetic field, this wire can be made to float in the magnetic field with upward magnetic force. Supposing the force acting on it upwards is magnetic force, okay, that is IBL, okay, and it balances out with the downward pull of gravity, that is mg. Okay, so by making mg is equal to IBL, you can balance this length of the wire L in the magnetic field. Okay, you can do that. If wire other than a straight wire join the initial and final points by straight line, The length of the line is the effective length. So in case, supposing the second point is that, supposing you have a wire of irregular shape, it is not a straight wire, then what you'll have to do is just connect its initial point to the final point. And this will be taken as the length of the wire. The red color you see, the direct line which connects the initial point and the final point, will be taken as the length of the wire. Okay, when you do L cross B, the length will be taken this way. And the third point is that if a closed loop carrying current of any shape is placed in uniform magnetic field, the net magnetic force on it is 0. So this is true only for a current carrying straight conductor. Okay, supposing you place a loop in the magnetic field, okay, the magnetic force acting on this loop will be equal to 0. There will be no force acting on a current carrying loop. Okay, so this is it about the derivation for magnetic force acting on a current carrying conductor placed in uniform magnetic field. In the next class, we are going to learn another derivation which is going to give us the force between two parallel currents. Okay, we are going to find out the force between two parallel currents. That means, supposing you have two conductors, okay, and both are carrying some current. There is current flowing through both the conductors. For example, they are carrying the current opposite direction or in the same direction. Then what is going to be the force between them? Whether they will attract each other or whether they will repel each other, whether this will attract each other or they will repel each other, that we are going to see in the next class. And then finally, we are going to define what is 1 ampere using that expression. Okay, so this is it for today. We'll stop. Okay, I'll see you in the next class.